Pokemon need to fix up. If you didn't know, Pokemon is the largest media franchise in the world. Since its introduction in 1996, it's made over $100 billion in revenue. But does it really feel like it's the largest media franchise in the world? Because to me, it really doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 3 parts to this video, focusing on 3 areas in which the Pokemon Company can significantly improve. First is going to be the TCG, second is going to be the Pokemon games, and thirdly, the anime. Firstly, the TCG. In the last couple months, the TCG has been at its highest since Logan Paul got involved back in 2021, I think, because that's the last time I remember Pokemon was so high, because you couldn't find Pokemon on the shelves, and all the old lot that used to like Pokemon that dropped out got back on because Logan Paul made a video. But now, ever since Prismatic Evolution, it's been impossible to find sets on shop floors, and every time the new set comes out, the Pokemon Center website literally crashes. So first things first, Pokemon, just increase your supply. You can easily buy more factories and hire more people to increase the supply, because if you know a set, like for example, I don't think Pokemon is dumb, right? Because when you really think about it, you have all this evidence from prior years to know which sets will potentially do well. Pokemon knows that Evolving Skies is one of the most sought after set of all time, and if they don't know that well, then what are you guys actually doing? So when Prismatic Evolution was going to come out, it should have been obvious that people love Eevee, and if you're going to have a set with loads of evolutions, why don't you print more of it? Like I said, I don't know how business works. I don't know if it is just easy just to hire more people and just make more factories to print more Pokemon cards, but it can't be that difficult, right? Because literally no set you've been able to actually pre-order. Everything just sells out instantly. Yes, most of it is down to scalpers, but Pokemon really didn't do anything to actually solve that issue. And like for me, I don't know why. For me, it's easier to get Japanese products than English products. I know Japanese isn't something that people want to open. They prefer to open English. But if I'm finding it easier to open Japanese products when I'm buying it from Japan than me finding English products in a place where I live in the UK, like to me that never made sense. So Pokemon just stop printing more. But there can be a problem with that, because the moment you stop printing more, the quality of your cards is going to go down, and that's going to be my second point. English sets just need to have better printing quality. If you've opened a Japanese pack and looked at Japanese Pokemon cards, you'll realize the quality of the cards are so much better. My biggest example is Prismatic Evolution. I always bring this up in every video because it's such a traumatizing experience. When I opened my Prismatic Evolution packs, I ended up getting Pokeball Umbreon. But I actually didn't realize it was a Pokeball Umbreon until afterwards, when I tried to move the card away and then I saw the reflection of the Pokeball. That just showed that the Pokeball was impossible to see unless you have the right lighting. The Japanese version was not like this. For the Japanese Pokeballs, you can actually see the Pokeball much better. So the print quality in that element is horrible, but English always has nicks, the centering is never good, and like, most people might be happy with that, being like, that's why PSA 10s and Ace 10s tend to be really high priced compared to 9s, because it's so hard to get a 10 nowadays. But as a collector and as the main audience for Pokemon, I don't care if 100 people have got Ace 10s and only 2 people have got a 9, because every card that's printed has got great quality. That's not what I care about. I just care about having a really good card that if I look at it and I turn it around, I don't see that the top border is significantly bigger than the bottom border, or that there's like 5 different nicks in every corner, or I see a massive print line through it. That's not why I open Pokemon, to make money, but most people I know do, and that's what they would prefer. They would prefer that there's inconsistencies, because in the higher grades, when you do grade it and you do get a 10, you know you've made bank. And for the main people who just want to collect and just want to have a good hobby, just improve the quality. I don't know what. Go to Japan and ask the Japanese producers, hey, how come your cards look so much better than ours? I don't know what you can do, but these are the 2 things regarding the TCG that Pokemon really need to improve on. Now, moving on to the games. One of my most passionate areas, because I feel like the Pokemon games. The Pokemon games are such a weird place, because we don't know if we're really happy with the place they are in now, or they've just gotten worse. Like, my first ever Pokemon game that I remember playing was Fire Red and Leaf Green when I had a Game Boy. It's vivid memories. I don't even know what starter Pokemon picked. I don't know what I did. My first actual game that I remember buying and I've got some memories of was Soul Silver. Soul Silver is probably one of the best Pokemon games ever made, I think. I don't think I'm weird to say that, because I just remember that it didn't look bad. And even now, if I'm going to play, it actually doesn't look bad. Like, it's something that I can play, but there are modern games which I'm just looking at and I'm like, this just looks bad. Like, for me, when I'm playing my Pokemon games, you guys might disagree. There are 2 main elements of it that I really, really care about. Firstly is, how do you catch your Pokemon? And secondly, the Pokemon battling. Story, I'm not super duper into, But as long as the battle animations and the ability to catch Pokemon's really good, and I kind of do like exploring open world scenarios. That's why I love Legend of Zelda. Like the open world environment, I absolutely adore. I love exploring. So starting with how you catch Pokemon, I think Pokemon Legends Arceus was perfect in terms of catching Pokemon. Not having to fight, sneak behind them, throw Pokeballs, different types of Pokeballs, a heavy ball, a fly ball, or just a regular Pokeball. Having the ability to catch Pokemon without having to go into battle was perfect. That's why for me, Legends Arceus is still the best Pokemon game that I've ever played because it was so different. But I know some people will disagree with that, and I know that in terms of sales, they actually didn't do that well, surprisingly. I think BDSP actually sold more copies, which don't even get me started on that. In terms of catching Pokemon, that is the best example. But when it comes to battle animations, Pokemon Champions is about to come out, and I feel like that is the game where they should really heavily focus on making sure the battle animations are absolutely 10 out of 10. From what it sounds like, it's going to be free and it will be for mobile as well. So there might be like limitations on how over they want to make the animations. From what we know, there's only going to be like a limited amount of Pokemon that you can pick in the beginning, and they'll add more and more Pokemon on. But why don't you do this, Pokemon? The first 100 Pokemon that you allow to be used in Champions, give certain moves specific animation. So for example, if you're gonna have Gardevoir, why don't you make Gardevoir have Moonblast, but make a specific animation for that Moonblast? Like, imagine every Pokemon had certain moves where they've got their own animation. Like Infernape, when it uses Flare Blitz, it's got its own cool animation. When Torkoal uses Overheat, it's got its own animation. Like, there are certain moves that you can imagine a Pokemon using, even if it might not be its special move. Like, you can see it using that move and it looking really cool. So Pokemon really need to fix up on battle animations, and I really hope Champions is gonna give us that. But my main issue with Pokemon is I just feel like they are expanding and they are trying new things, which is great. But if you aren't able to make a really good game, for example, Scarlet and Violet, if you knew that you're making a game that won't run on the console that you're gonna make it for, why will you make it in that particular way? If Scarlet and Violet came out with the Switch 2, I don't think many of us would have complained, because on the Switch 2, it's so much better. It's virtually like a new game. But in terms of the actual graphics and the landscape, that's still looks dog poo. That hasn't actually changed. I don't care if Pokemon games are not open world. Like, I get Scarlet and Violet is great because you can just travel wherever you want. But technically, you also can't do that because the gyms don't actually level scale. So if I go to the 8th gym, he's going to have level 50 Pokemon, regardless of if I fight them first or fight them last. So technically, it's not really that open world. So I would prefer it if it's not open world, it is fixed. But because it's fixed, the animations are much better. Like, for me, I did not hate Sword and Shield animations. I did not hate the way it looked. I thought it actually looked really good. And then when Scarlet and Violet came out, it made Sword and Shield look so much better than it actually was originally. And I think in hindsight, people would say that Sword and Shield was actually really good games. And Scarlet and Violet, when it comes to the look of it, it does not look like a game made by a company that's made over $100 billion in revenue. It just doesn't feel like that. So in terms of all of these things, Pokemon games need significant improvements on. Truthfully, I'm not expecting Legend ZA to be any different from Sword and Shield. From what it looks like virtually the same art styles and the same types of animation. So I'm not expecting a lot of extra stuff, but I do expect it to run smoothly. But in terms of animations and all of that, I don't expect it to be special. However, with Gen 10 and with the understanding that Gen 10 is not going to have any online battles and it's not going to have anything related to online and only Champions is going to have that, that should open up the storage for the Pokemon game to be able to actually focus on graphics. And I'm really hoping that next year in 2027, when Gen 10 comes out, we're going to see an overhaul in graphics, because if we don't, I think someone else has to start making Pokemon games, because Game Freak or whoever runs these games needs to be fired. Finally, the anime. So when Ash left Pokemon, everyone thought that anime is going to be dead, it's going to be not worth it. And then Horizon comes out. And I watched the first 2 episodes of Horizon and I'm like, wow, the battle animations in Horizon, it looks like they actually put a budget towards it because it looked really good. And I was like, if this is how this anime is going to go, great, let's keep watching. And then you're watching and you're like, wow, the story's actually good. But then you realize that the animation quality did take a slight dive. But it actually made up for it because the story in Pokemon Horizon is surprisingly really good. And ever since the time skip, it's just gotten even better. And it could be argued that it's kind of better than the entire story of Ash, because you're actually seeing character growth and progression. It's not like Ash gets reset every single time. You're actually seeing the three main characters develop, become stronger, learn who they are. Like, it's actually a really good anime. So if you haven't watched it, I would really highly recommend it. However, Pokemon really need to make an older anime for the older fans. Because imagine if Pokemon actually made an anime. So just close your eyes for 2 seconds and just think about it like this. Arguably one of the best fights in Pokemon is Leon versus Ash, Pikachu versus Charizard. That animation quality and that budget that they put towards it, imagine that. But imagine that's your baseline and that's the bare minimum Pokemon fights will look. Now imagine you ask the team who animate Demon Slayer, I forgot what the animation studio is called, but imagine you give them a project. Like, an idea that I thought of is, if anyone's watched To Be Hero X, where they've got everyone lives in the same world, but like every 3 episodes it focuses on a different character. I was thinking, what if Pokemon did something like that? In the first 3 episodes we're in Kanto and we're seeing the story of Red and how he got his starter and like some progression he's made, and in 3 episodes it shows the development of him beating the 8 gym leaders and him beating the Elite Four, and in episode 3 it shows how he became champion of Kanto. Then the next 3 episodes we go to Johto, and then in the next 3 episodes we have the story of Ethan and how he's doing, and for every region you've got like the main character from that region and it shows the progression of how they became champion. And that's season 1. And then in season 2, you've got them all in a tournament arc. All of them are fighting as their region's champion to figure out who the greatest trainer of them all is. And once that ends, whoever the winner ends up being, for example, if Red ends up winning that tournament and he's seen as the champions of champions, he's going out into the snowy mountains. He's climbing up just like in Heart Gold and Soul Silver's post game, and he sees Ash just standing on the mountains chilling, and Ash turns around and says, "So you think you're the best?" Something crazy like that. Like, it's so, like, it's so easy. The story's already written. Pokemon's already written the stories. You don't need to create new stories. Understand what Pokemon fans are after. They're after cool battles, cool animations, and storytelling that will show you the progression and bond between Pokemon and how they're gonna win and how they're gonna become champions like no one ever was. It's that simple. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment. Tell me if I'm a crazy man who needs to go find a job. But I really think that Pokemon, there's so much more we can do and we've barely scratched the surface. And if you agree, please hit the likes button and subscribe for more weekly videos. Goodbye.